With Arthur, when he was young, he was one of five.
Right.
One of five children. The middle one was terribly poorly when he was born.
What, Arthur was?
Yeah, I don't know whether you were aware of that.
No.
They didn't think he was going to survive.
Right. Do you know what it was that he had?
Basically nothing at the end, but they had him christened privately in the chapel at Sibley,
Okay.
and it's still there.
Right.
And he survived that, but he didn't have a lot of interest in school. He learned the 3 R's, obviously, because that was the thing he religiously did in school. But he was only interested in artistic things.
Okay.
And when you spoke to him, he would speak with and
Like this.
and like this all the time. A cousin, second removed, turned up at the break, and I said to Mary, "Good God, it's Lucan!"
Really?
And it was the identical split
Really?
of Arthur, and he's doing all
Doing the
this,
same thing.
And
It's genetic.
yeah, it was incredible. So the father got a better job. They lived in Sibley, and his father was always a groom with horses and things like that. And he finally got a job in the Peacock Hotel, I think it was, in Boston. And he was groomsman there, which was quite an important job because
Right.
everybody was horses, wasn't it? And mother went as well, and she did the laundry. And they had a cottage which was right behind the Shotfriars Hall. The theatre was upstairs.
So would that be it in there, you think?
That is the theatre. It was all upstairs.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, it was like an arcade.
So it was a theatre, the Shotfriars Hall. It wasn't nothing else in there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I'll pull a book out. There were shops on the ground floor here,
Yeah.
and something of an arcade. And when you go down this lane here,
Yeah.
which is not a long lane, it looks longer than it is, on that corner is three whitewashed stone cottages,
Right.
and that's where he lived.
Oh, right, okay.
When they moved into this was the Peacock.
Yeah.
When they moved there, that house went with it.
I see. Right. Yeah.
So consequently,
It's just round the corner, wasn't
it
it?
was just across the road, watching the people go in, and standing there. And of course, in those days, he was handing out leaflets, and then they invited him in to sweep the stage. And then it was here at about 11 or 12 that he saw his first pantomime.
All right.
First time he ever saw a live performance was in that building. And it was while the run of that pantomime was on, there was an epidemic of flu or something, and one of the spear carriers was taken
So
ill,
let it go.
and Arthur was on.
Right.
When he left Boston, he made up his mind on his own that he was going to leave.
Mm.
He didn't discuss it with brothers, sisters, mother or anything. And he went to bed exactly the same as he always did.
Yeah.
And got up at 4 o'clock in the morning when everybody was asleep and left a note on
Yeah.
and
Just-
walked out.
That was it.
That was it.
Did he ever go back for a visit or?
He did eventually, but at the point of time when he went, his mother cut him off.
Really?
She said, "That is the end of Arthur. You know, it was something that you didn't do because you were expected, even in my day as a child, you were expected to start work and hand over some of your wages to assist in the running of the house.
Yeah.
Because, you know, look how much you give up today to become anything, you know."
Yeah.
So that was that. Now the mystery is that he went from Boston to Blackpool, and nobody knows
How he ended up in Blackpool.
how he got there.
So he ended up here in Blackpool.
Yeah, we knew he went to Blackpool because he was joining this family.
And they were playing in Blackpool.
They were playing in Blackpool.
Scotland train, wasn't he?
I don't know how he did it.
I think he loaded freight cars.
It must have been. It couldn't have been any other way because there would be no hitchhiking because, you know,
Don't want motor transport,
No.
was there?
no. In those days, there was a lot of families travelling about. A husband and wife and 2 daughters.
It was cheaper, wasn't it, to hire?
And they said, "Oh, let's take a lad into the family." And they took a lad into the family. A bit like the old days of travelling circus. You ran away with the circus and they fed you and you slept under the caravan and you
Yeah.
did all the umping. but you felt that you got a family.
Right.
And this became his family.
Okay.
So he went with them, and I would think when he joined them, he was going out giving handbills out to say it's on at this place, and it probably then built into selling programs.
Right.
And then, of course, in that period of time, a lot of your concert parties would have 2 rows of deck chairs where people would pay twopence for a deck chair and they see the show as well.
Right.
And there would be an arena around, a railing around it where everybody would stand and watch the show for free.
Can you Slim, can you just explain, just for, you know, so I get that down, as it were, what exactly kind of the format-ish of their act would have been?
Years and years ago, I was with the concert party at Saltburn in Yorkshire,
Right.
and we used to perform twice a day. Once on the promenade where there was a platform and a piano,
Right.
and the piano was like on wheels, and we'd pick the handles
Pick it
up
up.
and wheel it to the next place. And
Right.
we used to perform there and put the deck chairs out and so seats for the deck chairs, and then those that weren't sat in the deck chairs, as you were doing the show, you go round with a box, and it's called bottling.
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 Yeah. Right.
And of course, if you were a pretty boy or a pretty girl, you'd do better than an ugly old man. And so we did it
Has that got
there.
anything to do with the term, the bottle, you know, to have bottle or?
Well, I would think so, yes, to have the bottle to go and do it, really.
Yeah. Right.
So we used to do that show at 11 o'clock in the morning, and then in the afternoon we picked up all our props and we moved a bit further down the prom, where there was like another staging set which was like concrete, nothing else, but had a bit of a roof over it, and we'd perform it again, the same show.
Right.
And then at night there was an indoor place on the pier. I don't know whether the pier's still there, and we used to perform inside in the pier.
Right.
And it would be a question that you'd have a comic, you'd have a light comic as well, and that light comic would be the feed.
Right.
Then you'd have the wife would probably play the piano. The 2 daughters would do a dancing act, and in that period of time, because of who he was working for, and they always wore that same type of costume,
Right.
the
Okay.
Perios.
Yeah.
In that point of time, you would sit and watch, and you would learn all sorts of tricks from these people.
Yeah.
And that is where Arthur would be taught. He would be
Yeah.
taught the funny moves and the tap dancing and the grace of walking onto a stage and talking to an audience.
Uh-huh.
Because as you can see how he works to the audience.
Yeah.
"Oh, whoa!" And all that business.
Right. Yeah.
And of course the funny moves that Kitty used to play hell about him, saying he was always rehearsing his funny walks. He never had to rehearse the funny walks. They grew with him as he went
Yeah.
through that time.
Yeah.
And so consequently, he became more powerful in the company because he became more talented.
Right. Okay.
Perhaps I'm being a bit bitchy because I say this was the way we used to learn our business.
Oh.
Today they send them to colleges and they come up with all sorts of pieces of paper, but absolutely no practical experience. They give them all new titles. The stagehand has become a technician.
Right.
The stage manager has become a technical manager. Doesn't make them any cleverer, just gives them a new name.
Right.
So consequently, it grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually the whole company moved to Ireland.
Right. Okay. So can I just kind of hold that thought, as it were?
Yeah.
In the concert party, how long would a show be, and what kind of would be the format of it, and what kind of sort of things? You mentioned a few things there that are really interesting. You know, like the daughters.
They would always have an opening.
Yeah.
That was probably words written for that show, naming the various individuals in the show, and it would be sung to a popular piece of music at the time.
Right. Okay.
We are
So-
the great band.
So yeah.
Hope you'll all enjoy the show.
So they do the pantomime thing of taking a well-known tune,
That's right.
yeah, and then changing the lyrics to
That's right.
for their own
Yeah.
ends.
And then you'd have the tenor would sing on his own, the soprano would sing on their own, the 2 of them would sing together, and then you'd have a complete shaner. You'd have comedy sketches in it.
Right.
You couldn't have a comedy sketch with a blackout, because it doesn't work that way,
Yeah.
because you can't black out the sun.
No.
But that is the type of format it was.
Right. And then there'd be a finale with everyone.
There'd be a finale, everybody
Big
on,
finish, yeah.
and many times there was a man called Alex Monroe. He had the Happy Valley in Llandudno for years and years and years. He used to get up in the morning and put on a dress suit and a cheeky little trilby hat, and he would go to bed in it because he performed 3 times a day, and I never knew if it was dandruff on his shoulder or fag ash, but it was always there.
Right.
Then he'd come out and say, "Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you've enjoyed the show, we are selling these photographs at 2 shillings each, and the cast will autograph it for you."
Mm.
And they used to sell a lot of them,
Yeah.
because that was part of Hope. The sale of a programme,
Yeah, sure.
the sale of anything, it all went into the kitty.
Yeah.
And I mean, they all lived in the same digs.
Right.
Have you ever been to that little theatre in Richmond,
Yes.
up in the northeast?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that dressing room under the stage,
Yeah.
not only did they dress there, but they lived there. They lived in those
They've
rooms.
down there.
It was a different style. So then they moved to Ireland and started doing plays and bits and pieces like that. And it was during that period of time that he was asked to write a pantomime for, I think it was the Olympia. Anyway, he was asked to write a
He's
pantomime.
obviously during that period of time, he's obviously got on really well, hasn't he?
Oh yes,
Because he's gone from just running away as a 14-year-old with.
yeah, but he was crafty. Because all he did was write the pantomime that he'd been in at the Shugfriars Hall.
He just, yeah, really, just came up with that script.
That was the only one he knew.
Yeah.
So he wrote that, and he noted a little girl who was the principal girl in the pantomime,
Right.
and that was Kitty McShane. And she'd probably be 14 at the time. But again, this was another move that he had in pantomimes, where now we put an advert in and book it. Nowadays, it's a bit different, isn't it?
Mm.
Though, going off the story, I remember one story of Paul Elliott saying he would only engage musicians who lived in that town to stop having to pay subsistence.
Yeah. Right.
So, I mean, this was another reason why they did it.
Well, they still use local dancing school, don't you?
Oh yes, in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases. And so he wrote this pantomime, met her for the first time, and then moved into her parents' house because they took people in.
Right.
And it was during that sort of year that was flowing on that the name Toll didn't really ring true with the Irish. If we consider the Irish and the Welsh and the Scotch, they're all very clannish towards themselves. And so this milk float was going past and had Lucan's dairies on it.
Right. So you took that.
So he said, "I'm going to be Arthur Lucan." And of course the other reason for doing it was there was a park in Dublin called Lucan's Fields, and this is where he courted Kitty.
Right.
And so consequently he married Kitty when she was 16. But you'll see on the marriage certificate that she said she was 18,
Right.
because at that point of time you couldn't get married at 16 without your parents' consent.
Right.
But by saying she was 18,
She got away with it.
she got away with
Did
it.
they not approve?
And I'm quite convinced, we're going off the story a bit now, I'm quite convinced that Arthur was a naive young boy in Boston in Lincolnshire,
Yeah.
looking up to all these, well, for want of a better name, stars, but they weren't stars as we know them, and looked up to them. And I'm sure he went away, and when he joined this family, he adored these people just as much. He respected their talent because he was learning from them.
Right.
And so when it got to 1913, and he would be about 27 or 28,
And he was still with that family.
yeah,
Right.
and he was still naive,
Right.
and he married Kitty McShane.
Right.
And he told me, and I really believe him, that they didn't live together as man and wife until she was 18.
Right.
And it was during that year of her 18th that the boy was born, Donald.
Uh-huh.
And of course they never had any more
Uh-huh.
because she walked away from the child and left it with her mother.
Yeah.
And at one point when
So
the child...
she wasn't interested, was she?
At one point when the child was 11 or 12, she was passing him off as her brother.
Really? How long was he with them for? Because that's a long time.
He was with them from... he must have been with them about 14 years.
Yeah, it is a long time, isn't it?
You see, the thing is that when you talk about it's a long time to be with the family, it isn't. Because when I was a boy, the stage manager was at that theatre for years.
Right.
He started there and he died there.
Yeah.
The theatre manager did. And the theatre manager knew the pulse of the town. He knew who was coming in and what they would like and what they wouldn't like.
Yeah.
Today, sadly, they're encouraged to move on.
Yeah.
You know, 12 months, I'm going to move on to something else. And so only continuity of warmth with the audience that are coming into those theatres have gone.
Mm.
I mean, I was 25 years managing the theatre in St Helens. I was 5 years stage manager, 25 managing it. And in the end, people referred to it as Slim's Theatre. Because I was the first person they saw when they bought the tickets. I was the person there saying good evening when they came in. And I was the person saying good night when they went.
Yeah, so they just associate.
And I always got dressed up because as a kid, when I was a kid going to the Penny Rush, I hadn't been out if the manager of the cinema didn't have a dress suit on.
Yeah. And
then suddenly somewhere in the 60s, ABC said managers don't have to wear dress suits anymore. You know, it's all a lot of what goes on and is not believable anymore.
I don't know, it's how things were, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's like, it's important to know how things were.
So they do those two pantomimes. They did two pantomimes at the Olympia and they've married and they moved to England.
Mm. And now, I take it that when he marries Kitty, that must be a bit of a watershed with the Cliftons then. Because at some point does he part company with them in favour of doing an act with Kitty?
Yeah, because you see, he did the first pantomime that he wrote.
Yeah.
And then when they said they wanted to do a pantomime the following year, they wanted him to write that.
Yeah.
But they then wanted him to play the Dane.
Okay.
And I think this is where he starts going in for a female character.
Right. And what were the Cliftons doing at that time?
Just getting older and...
Would they have been in those shows?
I don't know. They seem to just disappear off the scene. They never reappeared again after that, once he'd sort of left them. I think the moving point was when he chose to be Lucan.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was a distinct break because he made a statement himself.
Yeah.
That he was going to be something.
Right. Do you feel it was an amicable parting?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. You see, that was the wonderful thing about the business, even in my day as a kid, was the loyalty between each other, the pros, which is no longer there anymore. It's a different life.
Yeah.
An entirely different life. I mean, like the show on the North Pier this year, which is The Bachelors, Bernie Clifton, Susan Morn, Alan Randall. If you're over 45, if you're under 45, you haven't a clue who they are. I mean, the period that we're talking about, when I was a kid, was Monday night, you went to such and such a cinema to keep up with Flash Gordon.
Right, yeah.
And on Wednesday night you go to the theatre to see the show. Thursday night we used to polish the brasses.
Right.
Friday night was a Marmy night.
What's that?
That was a special shampoo for your hair. All the women... You see, you didn't have the box up the corner, and your life was planned round cinemas. I mean, in Blackpool we had 13 live theatres. Now this isn't counting the open air shows on the end of Fizz,
right.
because on the Three Piers there was an open air show.
Uh-huh.
Often it was mostly made up of a talent show.
Yeah.
But you know, we've got to a state now where I think we've got 4 live shows in the town. That's all.
Yeah.
All very sad.
And you're going to have a load of casinos.
Yeah. So they became Lucan and McShane, and it basically they started doing this act in 1925. I've got a contract somewhere in 1925 that they played the Grand Theatre Bolton,
Right.
and they were on £2.75 for the week.
Right.
And there was a clause in the contract that said they would go up to £3, £3.5 on the return visit.
Right.
And they were looking at McShane. And
they were basically doing that act.
basically, not necessarily that came late. So that didn't come until sort of 32 or 33.
Okay.
But they were doing things like the match seller and cross talk with the mother and the father. And like I said about him catching his foot round the leg of the table,
Right.
it comes up in nearly every show.
Uh-huh.
You have to remember that a lot of it could be awfully repetitive because you were only seeing them once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Whereas on the box you see them every week.
Well, that's right. I mean, comedians.
A
They lose
terrible
the material,
gobbler of
don't they?
material, a gobbler of people.
Yeah.
It soon loses complete interest. So then, on the strength of the Royal Command performance, the films were made.
How did they get the Royal Command performance?
It's always been a question of being invited. I mean, in the early days of the Royal Command performance, it was a Royal Command. The King and Queen asked for you. And then as years went on, it was agents that were controlling the whole thing. And it had...
Was it Delphont, you said?
Yeah. The man that's got it now, that controls it now, is the fellow with the international artists. His name just eludes me. But
Yeah, I think I know you.
I can see him. Stuart Littlewood and anyway, by this time, by the time they've got to the 30s, they've acquired themselves an agent, and the agent would be sort of pushing for them to get into the Royal Command performance.
Right, yeah.
Because it was something of a thing. So they had this man called Mike Lyon, and after they made the film in 1937, it was Michael that called them into the office and said, if you change your name to Mother Riley, I'll improve your money.
And how did Kitty take that? Because in Lucan and McShane, she gets billing.
Yeah,
In
but
Old Mother Riley, did she?
she got Bill in there.
How did she get?
Oh, Mother Riley and her daughter Kitty.
Oh, right. I see.
So I think at the time they were on about £120 a week.
Right.
And in 1938 they went to £1,000 a week.
Oh God, that was a lot of money, wasn't it?
It was a thing that you took the stage crew out for drink after you fit up.
Yeah.
And you could buy all the stage crew a drink, and they wouldn't ask for pints, they would always have halves.
Yeah.
And you get change out of 10 shillings, out of
Yeah.
50p.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old enough to go and buy a Kit Kat and go, bloody hell, 6 shillings for a Kit Kat.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. So the way that they talk about her being promiscuous, Kitty, and I honestly don't believe that she ever was.
Really?
I think she was flirtatious. I honestly believe that having the child put her totally off sex.
Really? Yeah.
She really didn't want to know. And it goes back to what I'm saying about Arthur. He was so naive. He's naive enough to accept it.
Right. Yeah.
We had at one time where he had a girlfriend, one of the dancers in the show, and it was nothing. I used to drive him. It was nothing for us to say we'd be going, say, from Blackpool to Wolverhampton, for argument's sake. and we'd drive across to bloody Hull just to take this girl a bunch of flowers.
Which wasn't good then, was it? Because driving them was a lot worse than it is now, isn't it?
Yeah, I can hear him now. If you got a bit tired and you finish up your wheels on the studs, come off the studs, you're wearing the tyres out. He's the only man I knew that you could stand 3 or 4 gins on a table and he would name them.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
He only ever drank booth gin.
Oh.
Having seen that Bridget night out, but I mean when they finally split up and I was working for Gaston and Andre and we were looking for a comic and Michael Lyon was our agent and we said we're looking for a comic and Michael said Arthur Lucan and we went, oh thank you.
Well, it wasn't because of him, was it?
No, because of her. And he said they've split. And that's not a bad idea.
So was Michael Lyon his agent all through?
All the way through. All the way through. Yeah. All the way through. Right up to the day of him dying. When I say all the way through, from sort of 33, 34.
So we're hitting the big time, getting the big age.
But you see, the thing is that I'd like to impress on you is the fact that people quote in books and say that they were stars for 30 years. They really weren't. Mm-hmm. I mean, they played the Hoban Empire in 33 or 34. Excuse me, I think I just don't want to go out. Sorry. They played the Hoban Empire about 1933 and they were nowhere near the top of the bill. They were quite near the bottom.
So they were kind of a good solid act.
They were a good solid act. They were a good solid act. I mean, there was periods of time. It's like when we talk about the variety in those days, we'd have 10 acts on in 2 hours.
Yeah, sure.
Including an interval.
Yeah.
And sometimes I sit and I think, how did we do it twice nightly? Because it was a 15-minute turnaround.
Yeah, really.
And you just merrily went on your way. And
you just carried on though, wouldn't you? You just get on with it.
Well, I remember being with a show and we had a tour for 46 weeks. And we actually asked if we could have a week out. Today, if you get 5 dates strung together, it's a tour, isn't it? It's a sad state of affairs. But as I say, that was it. So when they split up, they came with Gaston and Andre, and she was barred from every theatre in the country, was Kitty.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases it worked, but in a lot of cases it didn't work because managers were already terrified of her. So sooner than have trouble, they let her in.
Let her in, right. Or would she be like heckling and
no, but she's caused him distress. I mean, we were playing the Met Edgware Road and we were doing the match cellar at the close of the show. And there's a bride in the match cellar that was always Kitty. He's left me at the church, you know. And one of the lines is, I don't suppose you've ever had a lover in your life. Ooh, I've had a lover. Who's wanted to die for me? He said, every time he spoke to me, he'd say, I'll swing for you yet. And at about that point, Kitty stormed up on the stage at the Met Edgware Road. Cunning place to do it. The place was packed, it was a Friday night. A very strong Irish element. And she walked on the stage and she got over the girl that was playing the bride and threw her off and walked across to Lucan and she said, I'll swing for you yet. And she bashed him over the head with a handbag.
Really?
At that point, I rang the curtain for the curtain to come down. It didn't. My stage manager was a fellow called Ellis Ashton. He walked on and picked Kitty up and carried her off.
Really? Was he a big bloke?
Yeah. And I walked on, got Lucan and the garden seat and dragged it off. And we went into the finale and we had these strips of ribbon. And the soubrette came through and sang, au revoir again till we meet again. And this ribbons went up into a Valerian, rather a nice effect. And the girls, we had 0 angels came on from each side. And then so and so and so and so and so. And finally Lucan came down and he did something I'd never ever seen him do before. He took his wig off. And we brought the curtain down and he's very dejected. And the head girl said to the 5 that came on from the opposite side, she said, there'll be a fucking rehearsal in the morning for you lot. They said, why? She said, you were out of bloody step when you came on. I mean, absolute chaos it was. And I get Arthur to the dressing room. It was a funny theatre. It was a triangular place. And I got him to the dressing room and he said, where's Kitty? I said, she's outside. He said, let her in. You can't leave her in the alley. And we let her in, and she walked past the stage doorkeeper who'd just lost his wife, and she said, no wonder your bloody wife died, and went into Arthur's room. Jimmy Gatton and Rosemary Andre came round and they were for throwing him out. I said, no. Will he go home? And I'll sort it. Will he go home? And they went, and there was a lady called Miss Leddington who was responsible for booking. There was a lot of girl power in those days, responsible for booking all the syndicate halls. And she was renowned because she always used to wear syndicate halls, the Palace Chelsea, Met Edgware Road, Palace East Ham, Empress Brixton.
Were they all part of a syndicate?
Yeah, that was the syndicate halls.
Right.
And she always wore strange hats. And she came to me, she said, what are you going to do, Mr. Ingram? I said, I'm not going to do anything. I said, the show's over. I'm waiting for Arthur to take him home. She said, I think she should be thrown out. I said, well, it's your theatre. And she went and knocked on the door. And Kitty opened the door and she said, fuck off and change that hat. I managed to get her out of the theatre and got her into a cab and sent her home. And Arthur and I went back to the Savage Club. We were staying at the Savage Club. That was the only pleasure he had in life. He could hide in the Savage Club because women weren't allowed in.
Right, it was members only.
And men. Tragic. I mean, one night we were playing the Colchester Theatre in Colchester, and he's doing the match cellar. There was smoke coming through the floor, but we finished the match cellar and went into the finale. And at the point of the finale, in came the fire brigade with hatchets and everything. And we ran the curtain down, and it was a metal dustbin by the stage door that was full of ice cream cartons that was burning, because don't forget it's grease-proof wafer.
Oh, yeah.
And he's peeling his nose off. He said, you know, Chuck, he said, if we didn't know better, we'd have blamed our Kitty for that, wouldn't we? And we went back to the hotel, and the first person we bumped to was Kitty McShane.
Mm.
I mean, the Empire Bristol went up in flames, and she was the last one to leave the building.
You just
Kitty.
wonder sometimes.
And she wasn't even in the show.
Yeah.
It's all very, very sad. I mean, the last words he ever spoke was, don't worry about me, Chuck. And he fell over.
Yeah.
But I must say that when I walked back that night to the digs, I felt like Charles Atlas. I felt the weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders.
Really?
Yeah, those last 4 years, they were hard. They were very hard.
Mm.
She was trying to protect him from Kitty.
A lot of stress.
Yeah. And then you're trying to keep the cast happy as well, because they come and say he's drunk again.
So I suppose it cost him, when they're kind of looking for things all the time.
Yeah. In the play, on your bike rally, it shows him with pint bottles of gin, but he was never that sort of a drinker.
Yeah.
He bought little quarter bottles,
Right.
hid them all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, I shared bedrooms with him to keep him sober, and the tea would go down the sink and the gin would go in. Very tragic, very tragic. And I think, unfortunately, he had, right through his career, he had an unhappy life, because my feelings about him is that it's like a man who sweeps the road, which I think is one of the hardest jobs you can possibly do. If he wins the football pulse, he does one of two things. He either leaves it in the bank and carries on sweeping the road, or he blows it all in.
Right.
And I feel this way with Lucan and McShane. He was quite happy to continue sweeping the road. He didn't want a little Morris Mine or Hillman Minks, whatever the case was, that small car. He would have a small room in the back of the hotel. She'd have a suite of rooms with the boyfriend in it, and she had a big Buick car with the chauffeur and a maid. And the furs and the lot and the shoe, you know. She always looked magnificent.
Can't have lasted much long. It can't have lasted long with the money that we should spend on it.
Oh no! I mean, the only thing that was left at the end was the rent that was coming off the property in South Morton Street. And the funny thing was that she was living there with Willa. His name
This was the boyfriend.
Yeah. He was called Willa Neal in show business, but his real name was Billy Breach. He had a wife and about 7 kids in Clapham. And he had this this flat, and one night they got drunk, paralytic drunk, and they'd still got the maid, Maisie, and Willa died.
Really? He's just drunk too much.
And Willa called the police, and they wanted to speak to Kissinger. No, do not disturb Miss McShane, she's compos mentis. So they take the body away, and she finally comes to about 11 o'clock in the morning like that, and Maisie breaks it to her. Miss McShane, who was Miss McShane? Never kissed.
Didn't she know that this bloke had died?
No.
Oh my God.
Miss McShane, a bit of bad news, she said.
A bit of bad news.
Mr. Neal died. Oh, you know, the tears and everything else. And they want you to go down to identify that we're right. Well, she goes back into the bedroom, she comes out, and she's got the lot on, widow's weeds and the long lace thing, and off they go to the crematorium or wherever they put the body. And it was a slab. It was laid on a slab with a white sheet on him. So they uncovered the sheet, showing his head, and could you identify that this is Mr. Neal? And she went forward, and everybody thought she was going to kiss him. And she had him by the shoulder, and she said, "You rotten bastard, you said I could go first."
You're kidding.
So when he died, when Arthur died, I automatically got the understudy to change into the costume. And
Was this Roy Roland?
No, we hadn't got Roy Roland when he died.
Right.
We had Roy Roland as understudy, and when we came to do the last show, which was almost around him in Paris, Jimmy Gaston decided, "How many times did Roy go on last year?" I said, "Only 3.
Don't want to pay him.
A lot of money, £17, 10 shillings a week he was on. A lot of money insurance. I don't think we'll have one." So we didn't have Roy. So Jim said, "You better get an understudy." So it was a funny company. It was made up of actors as well as variety people, because there was a storyline running. So Frank Seaton was playing one of the gangsters. So I said, "Do you fancy understudying Arthur?" I said, "Yeah, all right." I said, "There's no money." He said, No. So we used to rehearse perhaps once a week, and we'd only been running about 5 or 6 weeks. So suddenly it was him. He was on. So I take him in the dressing room, and Arthur's on the floor. So I take the wig off, and I take the shawl off, and I take the apron off, and put him in the next costume, and I get him made up at the same time because I've got to go on for Frank.
Right, yeah.
So we went out and started the show all over again.
Yeah.
And of course Frank played the part. I mean, I still speak to Frank, but all he did was say the words.
Oh.
I mean, none of that. You know, that's something only that man had.
Yeah.
So I'd got the theatre manager to ring Gaston and Andre to tell him what had happened. And I rang them in between the houses because we've got a second house to do. And I said, the first thing they said was, the show went on, didn't it? So I said, yes, because
Panic.
didn't want to give any money back. That's it. And so I said, yes. I said, you've told Miss McShane, have you? So she said, oh no, we thought we'd let you do that. Oh, thanks for Blackpool, didn't I?
Mm.
And so I rang Kitty and I said, I'm sorry, Miss McShane, I've got some awfully bad news. Arthur passed away at 6:10. And she said, fucking bastard, and put the phone down. Now for years I believed she was calling me that.
No, she's so.
But as the years went on I realised she was referring to him.
Mm.
Because without a Lucan, she couldn't work. It was impossible to work. It's like double acts. I say
Even though she was going out without him,
yeah,
she couldn't do that anymore
No.
because the original one's gone.
exactly. And you've got Morecambe and Wise, you've got Cannon and Moore. It's like a marriage. If one dies, the other one dies. So we came up for the funeral, and she never. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen that Steve King book, but he tells all sorts of stories entirely different to what it was. We've got all the theatres wrong. It's dreadful. And I went to meet her at the hotel, and she was with Willa, and Roy and I went round. I'd rung Roy that night, Roy Rolland, who was in Rill, and he came up and I met him off the train the following lunchtime. So we spent Tuesday afternoon going through the show, changing bits in it, and putting in stuff that Roy remembered.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I had to feed him because he lost his bloody bottle, really. That's what it amounted to. And it was a fact of having somebody that he knew with him. And I mean, the frightening thing was that I knew Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else knew him.
Right.
Not another soul in the show knew him. So when they go, we did the shillelagh. Ladies and gentlemen, here she comes, old Mother Kelly. I renamed her Old Mother Kelly.
Yeah.
And Roy came through the door. Row! The girls burst into tears. The band stopped playing and stood up to look.
Really?
It was like a resurrection. It was just like he'd come back to life.
Scary.
So we played the whole week and the business went down and down and down. And after a lot of arguments with Kitty, we finally settled on which cemetery he was being buried in. And one story goes round that she called him a bastard and that she wet her knickers while they were by the grave. Oh, nonsense, because I was stood by the side of her. And all that happened was that she threw a shawl in on top of the grave, on top of the coffin, and a rose.
Her shawl?
No, the shawl, one of his shawls.
Right.
And a rose, a single rose.
Right.
And that was it, we came away. And we took the show off for a week, and then went back on the road as Old Mother Kelly. Then we changed the title to Paris to Paradise Row. It was the same show. Roy and I bought shares in the show, and at the end of the run, we'd virtually worked for about £2 a week less than we would have done, but we kept the show running,
Right.
which was basically good for Roy.
Right.
And then,
I suppose everyone who was in it was.
yeah, and everybody else was working. And then Roy took his own show out, Fine Feathers, the following year, but he wanted to come down glamorous in the finale.
Right.
And it was stupid because it's all Mother Riley we were going to see. And then she decided she wanted to go back on the road, and she rang him up. And Roy, oh yes, Mrs. McShane, he was terrified of her. A lot of people were terrified of her. And he agreed to go back. So he went back on music hall for about 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Kitty McShane presents Old Mother Riley and the daughter Kitty. And it didn't work.
Yeah.
And at that point, Roy took on the mantle of Old Mother Riley, or took on the name and continued working. But he did something that Lucan couldn't do. He turned it into a patter act.
Oh, right.
So he was fine with that.
So he just did it on his own?
Yeah, with this business. And he did gags about the girls courting on my doorstep, the things they get up to on that door. things that Lucan could never ever do.
So it was more like a stand-up comedy then?
Oh, he was a stand-up comic.
Right.
He was a stand-up comic. And then time passed on, and he then came to the Opera House here in Blackpool. And then, as I say, he did this last show with me, and I used to wear grey tails and a grey top hat as a change from being in black, with a pink shirt and a pink tie. And I got to the venue. It was a Plough-White Theatre in Scunthorpe, and I got Roy booked as top of the bill, and he made me a handkerchief at the top of my pocket and a pink carnation. He was very like that, you know.
It's quite camp then.
Very camp. And sat in the dressing room, he said, "I should have stuck to the name that you gave me."
Well,
Oliver Kelly.
Yeah.
Because over the years he had some very bad publicity of older writers in the paper saying he'd stolen Arthur Lucan's act.
Really?
And that was the last time he worked.
Oh, because he had this...
This stroke.
That's right, you told me about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's all very sad. The whole thing. No, it's so strange to think that I went to Roy's funeral and I went to Arthur's funeral, so you think you've buried the two of them. You've buried the character completely.
Mm.
I mean, the funny thing happened a few weeks ago. In May, actually, I was talking to my next door neighbour like I'm talking to you, or he was actually talking to me and I was listening, and I went totally blind. Just like that.
Really?
I said, "You'll have to shut up, I can't bloody see." And it came back after about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I finished up in the hospital for a couple of days. They still didn't all caught it. But Mary on the phone, I mean, she was on the phone this morning and came across something that I hadn't realised, that Arthur died on the 17th of May.
Right.
I went blind on the 17th of May.
Oh.
And my wife died on the 17th of February. You sort of say, what's 17 got to do with everything? You know, how it keeps bouncing back again.
I nearly mentioned this earlier, but I didn't want to kind of disturb the flow
Yeah.
of just talking about, you know, Lucan and Shane and what have you. Is that how kind of typical of that time and that era of show business do you feel that the Lucan and McShane act was?
I think the situation, when you talk about when they started, which we're presuming was around 1918, aren't we?
Yeah.
That the act became. They were desperate for looking for acts that were different.
Right.
It's very hard to find 10 acts, and they would probably be right at that period of time to be the mother and daughter.
Okay.
Because there were several double acts that came along sort of about the same time, which were like Carol and Monday. They were husband and wife,
Right.
and he was a drunk, and he used to come in drunk.
Right.
But it was sort of like an ongoing thing. I think we looked upon those acts the same as we look upon Flash Gordon. I mean, you didn't care what was on at the pictures. We're going next week to find out how he got out. The serial was the important thing.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
And you've got a lot of those acts that sort of went on a continued thing. I've said of people like Harry Lauder, he toured for 20 odd years, doing the same act with the same tune, the same band parts. If you were to put him onto primetime television now, he'd perform to more people in one moment
Than he
than he did in the whole of his lifetime. And this was the beautiful thing about these acts, is that they just polished everything. I mean, in this plate smashing thing, there was one point in the life of it when they had a big meat dish,
Right.
and he would be polishing it and there was a cue in something that she said that he had to drop it. And they'd had an argument, and he wasn't for breaking it. And she came across and she said, "Break it, Arthur, break it up." He said, "I won't, it's Delph." So you'd always got that little bit of a polish. That was the beautiful thing about the acts, that they grew on you as the time went on.
Right.
Now you quickly grow off them, don't you? You see something that's on for a period of time, you go, "Bloody hell, is that on again?"
Yeah.
I mean, there was a point of time in television where it was a Bruce Forsyth show with Engelbert Humperdinck as a guest artist, and then a bit later it was the Engelbert Humperdinck show with Bruce Forsyth as a guest artist. It just went on and on like that.
That Bridget's Night Out sketch.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
what date's that?
That is 1935.
And that's the Royal Command performance.
Royal Command performance. The important thing I think you should do is definitely watch On Your Bike Rally. I got involved with it at the beginning, and I've never ever found the tape.
Yeah.
I made it, I did a half-hour program on Lucan, which was broadcast the week before On Your Bike Rally went out. And we shot it at the Little Theatre in Middlesbrough, with me sat on the circle.
Who did it? Who produced it then?
Tynes Tees. Well, Tynes Tees was Granada, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, I did this thing, and this was prior to the television of On Your Bike Rally going out. I went to see it at the Theatre Royal Stratford. I was very, very impressed with George and Mildred.
Right.
Very impressed. I was most impressed by Maureen Lipman
Right.
as Kitty McShane. I mean, you've got this Jewish girl from Yorkshire on high heels playing an Irish harridan. And I felt at the time, and I said to them, told them all the mistakes they'd made, like with the big bottles of gin and things like that. I said, it's a sad thing that another theatre didn't decide to stage this.
Yeah, really.
Because I'm sure it could have gone into the West End, but because it was
Was it just a play then? It was
Yeah.
a straight play?
yeah, Theatre Royal Stratford,
Of course, yeah.
and it was all done very, very tattily. You know, little trucks were pushed on that you'd have to
So
get
it was
room
a
to
cheapo.
stand on them. Oh, real cheapo. So then they made the television of it, and as I say, I was impressed watching the show
Right.
with Murphy. Then I showed On Your Bike Rally, and I stopped it at where they do the sketch, Bridget's Night Out in it, and I stopped it there, and then I showed Bridget's Night Out, took it out and put
Yeah.
Murphy in.
Yeah. Why do you think Arthur continued to do it for so long? If he was not happy in the life.
The only time I think he was happy was when he was on.
Right.
So
So that's why, really.
I'm sure. I mean, he was absolutely stage struck.
Right.
He worked so close to the footlights, it wasn't true, because that was the last thing I said to him, watch the footlights, because it was steep.
Yeah, he said on
And
that.
you know, he couldn't wait to get to an audience. But the strange thing is that many people say that Arthur was one of the most sought after dames, pantomime dames. But he wasn't a pantomime dame.
No.
He didn't do a lot of pantomimes,
Right.
because he stayed the same character all the way through.
Yeah.
And the secret of being
And
a
he never
successful
dressed
is the
it
change
up.
of costumes
Yeah.
and the Christmas tree hairdo
Yeah.
and everything else. It doesn't work. Plus the fact he never had a bosom, so
No.
basically he was never ever a dame.
No.
He was my feelings is that he was a comedy actor who created this character,
Mm.
and he became a member of the Savage Club. I think it was recommended by Du Bois Summers or somebody like that. And of
Right.
course, you only ever got, well, Du Bois Summers is on that film.
Right.
You only ever got into the Savage Club if you discovered something, like climbed Everest or something like that.
Really?
And he
Right.
was in on the strength of the creation of the character.
Right.
And you see, people now sort of say 30 years at Old Mother Riley, but it wasn't.
No.
It was always Mother and Kitty,
Yeah.
but the name didn't appear until then. And if you really put your mind to it, he wasn't famous that long.
How long did the kind of the real height of the fame last?
You sort of say 38 to 51. That was his last film.
Right, so that's like 15 years-ish.
Yeah. I mean, the incredible thing about the character was the fact that we played the Theatre Walworth at Tidville, which was not a number one date, but of course, when you're getting guaranteed, you'll go anywhere
Yeah.
to keep the show running, because that was the name of the game, keeping the shows running.
How long did you play in the theatre?
Hmm?
How long would you play in a theatre?
A week.
Yeah.
A week. We were playing.
Well, you were taking the whole show by now, weren't you? You weren't kind of part of a bill that was going on. It was like that. It was a whole
Whole
production.
show.
Yeah.
Dancers, wardrobe,
Yeah. Good work.
orchestra, and everything else. And we had one point we had the show down at the Theatre Royal Exeter, and our musical director was a man called Dmitry Zhekalov. There's a mouthful for it.
Wow.
He'd come over here with a show in 1938 called Tropical Express,
Right.
which had 200 scenes in 2 hours. The cloth went back, and there'd be an elephant and a python round a tree, and they'd go and say, "We are in London." And the next scene came on. They had fakers, they had jugglers, they picked them up all around the world. And it went back to Germany in 39.
Yeah.
And a troupe of English girls went with it, Zio Angels, Florence went the Zio Angels. Dimitri dropped out of the show then, and the girls were never ever seen again. Nobody ever knows what happened to those girls. They were in Germany
Was
when the
war
war
declared
began. Yeah,
and that was it?
that was the end of the conversation. But we played Exeter. Dimitri said, "I cannot go into the pit." He still spoke like that with a big bushy hair. "Cannot go into the pit." So I said, "Why?" He said, "They are a black leg band. I am in the union." So I said, "All right, I'll go in the pit." So I'm not a musician, but I knew when to start him. I knew the time that we were doing it in. I knew when to finish him. So we got through Monday night all right. I got through Tuesday night all right. And Ellis Ashton is in the corner for me. And we did a front cloth with Arthur. And then we went into a Shana. All these shows had Shanas.
Yeah.
And this was a Spanish Shana with fans and Spanish dancers and senoritas and everything. And to get into the next scene, which was a sketch in Arthur's backyard, the chorus girls used to come forward to do a tambourine dance. Da, 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 da.
Right, yeah.
So it got to Wednesday night, and the band was made up of one violin, one trumpet, a drummer, and an organist. It was a
Take it,
big,
this wasn't your band, it was just the house band.
the house band.
Yeah.
And so after Tuesday night, I said, "Will you be all right now?" "Oh yeah, no problem. Yes, we know. Yes, all right."
So you can link the band to it.
So
yeah.
left the band to it. So I've told you the makeup of the band: the violin, trumpet, and drums. So obviously the organ was the loudest bloody instrument. And when it came to turning over a piece of music for in Lady of Spain, it was all manuscript, you know. Turned it over. He turned over 2 sheets.
Oh God.
So in the middle of the music went, and I had a head girl, Mary Charlton, her name was. She wasn't young, but if her leg was there, everybody else's leg had to be there.
Yeah.
And she was right by the mic in the centre. She said, "Ignore the fucking music." Goes 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's what you want.
Oh yes. So going back to the Merthyr Tydfil, Arthur and I were sat in the cafe. You couldn't call it a restaurant, it was a cafe, having a coffee, and there were two women at the next table who didn't recognise Arthur, didn't know me from Adam. And one said, "You're going along to the theatre this week to see old Mother Riley?" And the other one said, No. There's a fellow called Arthur Lucan taking her off. That was Arthur's secret. They believed in him. I mean, I think that the Royal Command, that is the peak of his career.
Right.
Because he didn't have an awful lot of success in London.
Right.
Agents did say of him that he was too northern for London.
Really? Right.
But that has been said about a lot of northern comics.
Yeah.
The Frank Randalls and all those people. But unfortunately, by doing that, we get to the point where we've finished the story before he becomes Riley.
Yes, and that's what I kind of want to avoid.
So
we need to tie it up in terms of a drama.
So the situation would be is if you did the third sequence involving the Royal Command performance, and then the agent coming along and offering to make a film, and then the introduction of Con West, who was going to be the co-writer with him,
Right.
and it's Con West that names him Old Mother Riley.
Right. In reality, those events are separated in time, aren't they?
Not by an awful lot.
Right.
The Royal Command performance was 1935,
Uh-huh.
and the film was 1937. The man that wrote the story was Con West.
Con West, right. This is Con West.
I think he is very important because Con West stayed with him then through all the films. He was always...
And were all the films made here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know whereabouts they were made, just out of interest?
Most of them were made at Elstree or Shepperton,
Right.
all in England.
Right, yeah.
And the last one he made, which was Old Mother Riley Meets the Vampire, which...
They came out with them, didn't they?
I mean, what was so ridiculous about Old Mother Riley Meets the Vampire is they fetched Lugosi over to play the part.
Wow!
Though we were awfully, what are we saying? Though we're saying that Lucan was a big star
Right.
as far as the Butcher's films were concerned, if you look on it the other way, a lot of those films were made to keep up the British quota.
Right, because they had a British quota in America.
Yeah.
So otherwise the American films couldn't be shown over here.
That's right. And so consequently, when that last film was made, they were based to run at about...
Dora Bryan as well.
Yeah. They were based to run at about 65 minutes.
Right, okay. So it's quite...
And
it's a
he
shorty then,
couldn't
isn't
get back to America quick enough.
it? Right,
Lugosi.
Lugosi, yeah.
And he was completely convinced that Old Mother Riley was for real.
Really?
Yeah, they never socialised outside the making of the film. Remember, they were only taking 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most. So he was off back to America, and when they put the film together, they suddenly realised that it was running short by 6 or 7 minutes.
Right.
So we had another week in the studio with Lucan, totally on his own.
Doing pieces that
Coming
could be
through
put in.
doors, oh, you know, that. And at that point of time, it was very difficult because it got the breakup with Kitty,
Right.
it got the threat of the bankruptcy, and it was really going. I mean, I used to stand behind the doors and I used to say, right, come on through now, and through the door, and he'd do the leaps and the bounds.
Right, but
And
he
in
wasn't really kind of thinking
No.
what he was doing, he was just doing it.
In many cases, I used to appear in the sketches with him because they figured that I was the only one that could control him. This is me here,
Yeah.
and that's Ivy Janocki.
Right.
She was a character that was never ever seen. You know, she was a radio character that was produced for the broadcasting. And it was a sad state of affairs the last few years of his life.
Really?
It really was. I mean,
Was he still getting good bookings?
hmm?
Was he still getting good bookings?
We did something that I didn't believe was possible. In latter years, there was things that were sort of said were guarantees. You know, Paul Eddie was a great one for getting guarantees, but sort of back in the 50s, unheard of.
Yeah. Well, it's starting to be again, I think.
Yeah, and suddenly we were going round the theatres with All Mother Riley and Going Gay, All Mother Riley in Paris, All Mother Riley, getting guarantees.
Oh, right.
But we were playing the smaller theatres.
Right.
And so in one voice, the person in the street looked and said, "Oh, Mother Riley at the theatre."
Right.
And then the second thought was saying, must be going down to come here. Nobody ever overrated their own town.
No.
And the impression that I'm trying to get is, that was Kitty and Arthur. Now Kitty was always that terrible snob. She always went over the top,
Right.
furs and what have you. And this was a picture that I took in 1950, and that is the true Arthur Lucan.
He's still got the head, isn't it?
Oh yes, yes, everything about him. I mean, he was. There was an example with him, is that when we took him anywhere, we had to dress him up. You didn't need to sneak him out the stage door because you could walk out and nobody knew him.
Right. I see what you mean, yeah.
So the thing was that
Yeah, he could make an appearance, but he'd have to be in the outfit.
in the outfit,
Right.
I mean, I remember one, it's in the archive somewhere, of a beauty competition that we did at New Brighton. And we took him out and dressed him, and we took a fire prop so he could do the warming his bum on the fire, and then he actually burnt his bum, and we had a big giant block of soap that he used to slide up and down on. It was all visual, everything about him.
Right.
He wasn't a comic. I tried to get this through to people, that Arthur was an actor
Right.
who created this character.
And then it was the character that was funny.
The character was funny. I mean, even the people that he ran away with when he left home in the first place, people in that company said Arthur wasn't very good in trousers. So he sort of found his nick. And I mean, the funny thing with the old Mother Riley bit, or whatever you want to call yourself, is that it's before my time, but when I was a kid, every street in every town had a lady that you'd go and knock on the door and say, "Could you come along, my husband's died?" And they would go along and lay the body out.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
And in the same case, you went to the same woman and said, "Can you come quick, my mother's having another baby," and they go along. There was always one of those. And this is where Arthur got the character
Right,
from.
this was like based on that character.
It was based on a woman, a washerwoman in Dublin,
Right,
and every area had one.
yeah.
And of course I said to him, "Where did you get your costume from? What was the idea of the costume?" And he showed me a photograph of his mother.
Yeah, right.
And it's identical to his mother.
Oh, right.
I mean, the shawl isn't as tatty as the one he's wearing. It was rather a nice lace shawl with a bit of lace around the bottom, but with the cowpat hat on,
Right.
and the skirts and the boots, and the hair pulled tight back behind the head. And he just added the bulbous nose, which was a
Right.
rubber nose, you know.
Right, so that went on, yeah. Do you feel that he was very typical of his time in the way that he created that character?
The sad thing is that I went the other night to the Opera House to see the comedians. And it was not to the old comedians from the comedian show. The place was roaring with laughter. Unfortunately, I've got a retentive memory and I could tag all the jokes anyway. But at the end of the show, I'm sat there saying, who's doing whose act?
Right.
They're all doing the same string of jokes,
Right.
and they cross boundaries with them. And at the point of time when we're talking about with Arthur first starting this, every comic in the country had something that was his.
Right.
It was never a question of one-liners. We didn't have one-liners in those days. That's a creation of sort of the mid-60s.
Right. So it was an act, and they had almost a situation comedy.
Oh yes.
In that they were in that.
He was not a comic. Arthur could not stand and tell jokes.
No.
Whatever we did with Arthur, over the period of time that I was with him, and even before that, you know, it was always a situation that was created there, and there was stooges in to put the lines in, and characters that came in to make the whole thing funny.
So it's very scripted as well. It's not very. And
Oh, totally scripted.
Yeah.
There was no ad lib
Right.
with Arthur. So, is it been of any use to you?
That's been excellent.